I like to have a reminder of death and mortality, maybe a less morbid way to put it, in several places in my house, which is also just a course correct prompt. If I'm like, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this partnership, this deal, that, or the other thing. And it comes down to a long pro and con list for the decision. Number one, that should be an indicator. The answer is don't do it. But B, a reminder that you could die at any minute helps to act as a clarifying force for me. And it goes on.
What are your other death reminders?
I have skulls in my house. I have a caribou skull with antlers about 6 feet to the left of me. There are books on warfare, like about face, also in my living room to the left. I actually have a stack of this book about face, which was given to me by a podcast guest of mine named Jocko Willink, who's a just famed retired Navy SEAL commander, also led all the West Coast training for the SEAL teams. And that's his favorite book. So he recommended that, and now I gift it to other people. So that is there. I have multiple skulls. I have more skulls downstairs.
I'm getting a very weird impression of your house right now.
Yeah. It's not a mausoleum or a house of death. I have a bust of Seneca. So Seneca the Younger in marble, which is on my kitchen countertop. And they don't need to be everywhere. They just need to be here and there. So I have a handful upstairs and a handful downstairs.
So there is a chapter in Tools of Titans with Kevin Kelly. Great, sort of fascinating mind. And he had one of the, I don't know if I call it a recommendation, but a practice that left me thinking for the longest in the book, which was that he keeps a countdown clock on his computer that is tied to the actuarial lifespan for people like him. And so just every day, the number of days he plausibly has left on Earth are ticking down in front of him. And I read that, I thought, on the one hand, I really see the way that would help clarify and focus the mind. And on the other hand, that I am Jewish. I come out of the box with a deep fear of mortality. I'm like that kid who, when he recognized, right. I'm like that kid who, when he recognized what death was, it was like 3 months of hell for my parents. And I don't quite know how I would long-term react to seeing that tick down. I'm curious what you think of that particular practice.
I love it. And I know, I in fact know a number of people who independently have ended up creating death clocks of different types.
An amazing social circle, I have to tell you.
Well, it's very uplifting because they are not prone to wasting time. They are prone to having fun, which is not the same as wasting time because they're aware that they are using time specifically for having fun. And the mortality ceases to plan well for a good death, and that could be a multi-hour conversation in and of itself. Number one, just read the Moral Letters to Lucilius by Seneca, or you could read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I prefer Seneca, so you could look up anything. Letters from a Stoic, Tao of Seneca. There are a number of different options for digesting that. And to prepare for a good death, which takes into account not only yourself, but the people you care for, I think it's very, very important to develop a certain comfort level with death. And I'm sure you've heard stories. I've had this experience in my own extended family where people are so terrified of death that they never plan for it. And they don't do they don't get wills in place. They don't get any type of instruction in place for the worst case scenario, whether that's ending up on a ventilator, unable to communicate with your children, or dead. And when you have these memento mori, these reminders of death, it's a bit like, this might be a little out there, but iocane powder in The Princess Bride. I don't know if you remember the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Oh, I do. I rewatched Princess Bride like 3 weeks ago.
All right. So when you dose yourself in I think they would call it a hormetic way, in very low doses with something like these memento mori, these reminders of death ceases in a way to have a grip on you. And then you are able to think more rationally and logically about the finite time that you have on this planet. And I think it allows you to take better care of yourself and better care of the people around you. if I try to schedule doing things that I fear in manageable doses, and there are different ways to overcome phobias, right, or fears. This would be systematic desensitization. There's flooding, which I'm not really big on, but this type of desensitization towards death, I think, could be really valuable for you. And for me, it's like, for instance, I didn't learn to swim until I was in my 30s. That's embarrassing for a number of different reasons, but I had to end up dosing myself almost in a medicinal vaccination type of way so that I could become more comfortable swimming. And now I swim to relax. But I do think it's not something that you can think your way in or out of. It's really just a process of exposure.